My name is Vanessa Morgan, and at 32 years old, I never imagined I'd be sitting in my therapist's office sobbing over a family meeting that had imploded spectacularly just hours earlier. Dr. Winters handed me another tissue as I tried to compose myself enough to speak. "They didn't even come to my wedding," I choked out. 3 months of silence. But the very minute, they saw my new Porsche on Instagram, suddenly I'm important enough for a family meeting? And you won't believe what happened when I showed up. I still couldn't process the shock on my parents' faces when I walked through their front door. The same door I'd passed through thousands of times growing up, but this time was different. This time, I wasn't the desperate-to-please daughter they'd always known. This time, I had leverage, and I used it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you've ever felt invisible to the people who should see you most clearly, if you've ever been dismissed or overlooked by family who claim to love you, then maybe you'll understand what drove me to do what I did. And if you haven't experienced that particular kind of heartbreak, count yourself lucky. Let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up in the affluent Boston suburb of Brookline, I was the middle child, the peacekeeper, the forgotten one. My older brother James was the golden child, Harvard graduate, successful surgeon, married to his college sweetheart with picture-perfect twin boys. My younger sister Melissa was the baby, the artistic free spirit who could do no wrong even when she dropped out of 3 different colleges or needed financial bailouts. And then there was me, reliable, responsible Vanessa. I put myself through business school, built my marketing consulting firm from scratch, and never asked for help. I was the one who organized family gatherings, remembered birthdays, and showed up when someone needed assistance moving or cleaning out their garage. I was there for every family emergency, every celebration. Mom and Dad never missed James's medical school graduation or Melissa's art exhibits, but they had scheduling conflicts for my business launch party and repeatedly postponed visits to see my new office space. "It's just marketing," my father once said dismissively. "It's not like you're saving lives like your brother." Those words cut deeper than he could ever know. When I met Daniel 3 years ago, he saw me, really saw me, in a way my family never had. A software engineer with kind eyes and a quiet confidence, he valued my ambition and celebrated my successes. When he proposed after 18 months of dating, I was ecstatic. Finally, I thought I'd have a chance to be center stage in my family's eyes, if only for one day. The wedding planning began, and I called my mother immediately. "Mom, Daniel proposed last night. We're getting married." There was a pause on the line. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. Have you set a date?" No congratulations. No excitement. Just a practical question that felt like an afterthought. "Not yet, but we're thinking next spring. I'd love your help with planning." "Well, you know your father and I have that cruise booked in April, and May is when we usually visit James and the boys." And so it went. Every suggested date had a conflict. Every planning conversation got redirected to stories about James's wedding or questions about when we'd start trying for children. My mother's lukewarm involvement felt worse than no involvement at all. When we finally settled on October 15th, a date they assured us was perfect, I felt relieved. Maybe, just maybe, this one day would be about me. 6 weeks before the wedding, the text came. "Darling, something's come up. Your father's college roommate is being honored at a special alumni event the same weekend as your wedding. He's receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, and we really can't miss it. You understand, don't you? You've always been our independent one. Maybe we can celebrate with you and Daniel afterward?" I stared at my phone, the words blurring through my tears. They weren't coming. To my wedding. For an alumni event. Daniel found me on the bathroom floor, hyperventilating. They're not coming, I kept repeating. They're choosing a university event over their own daughter's wedding. He held me while I cried, then helped me call my brother and sister. Their responses were telling. That's awful, James said, sounding genuinely concerned. But you know how Dad is about his Harvard connections. I'm sure they don't mean anything by it. Melissa was more blunt. Are you surprised? They've always done this to you. Remember my college graduation they missed because you had that emergency appendectomy? They still went to my ceremony instead of staying with you at the hospital. I hadn't known that. The revelation made me physically ill. Our wedding day came, a perfect autumn day with golden sunlight filtering through red and orange leaves. Daniel's large, boisterous family filled his side of the ceremony space. My side had scattered friends, my siblings, and a row of conspicuously empty seats in the front. I walked myself down the aisle. No father to give me away. The ceremony was beautiful despite their absence, and Daniel's family embraced me with such warmth that I almost forgot about the empty chairs, almost. During the reception, my phone remained silent. No congratulatory text. No call to see how things went. Nothing. 3 months of silence followed. I sent them photos of the wedding, which received brief lovely and beautiful day responses. My usual Sunday check-in calls went unanswered or cut short. When I mentioned visiting for Thanksgiving, my mother claimed they had already made plans with James's family. The final straw came when I landed the biggest client of my career, a major tech company that quadrupled my firm's revenue overnight. After years of grinding, of doubting myself, of building something from nothing, I'd finally achieved undeniable success. The contract included a substantial signing bonus. Let's celebrate, Daniel said one evening. You've always talked about that Porsche Taycan. The electric one? Now you can afford it. That's crazy, I laughed. Nobody actually buys their dream car. Why not? You've earned it. Literally. 2 weeks later, I was driving home in a sleek, midnight blue Porsche Taycan, $135,000 of electric luxury that handled like a dream. It wasn't just a car, it was tangible proof of my success, something even my parents couldn't dismiss. Daniel snapped a photo of me beside it and convinced me to post it on Instagram, something I rarely did. Be proud of what you've accomplished, he urged. The post was simple: hard work pays off. Dream car achieved through my own business success. #entrepreneurlife #dreamscometrue. I never expected what happened next. My phone rang at 8:37 the next morning. My mother's name flashed on the screen. Vanessa? Is that really your car? She sounded breathless. Yes, Mom. I closed a major deal last month. You never told us. She sounded almost accusatory. I tried. 3 times. Dad said he was too busy to talk, and you had bridge club. A pause. Well, your father and I think it's time for a family meeting. Things haven't been right between us, and we should talk. Tomorrow at our house? 6 o'clock? I nearly dropped the phone. 3 months of silence. They missed my wedding. They dismissed my career for years. But a car, a material possession, suddenly made me worthy of their attention. I'll be there, I said coolly. I hung up and stared at Daniel, shock and anger warring inside me. They want a family meeting. Tomorrow. Because of the car? He asked incredulously. Apparently, success they can drive is more impressive than success you can marry. That night, I couldn't sleep. Childhood memories flooded back, the piano recitals my parents missed, the academic awards that went uncelebrated, the constant messaging that my achievements weren't quite good enough. By morning, something had crystallized inside me, a plan that would either heal our family or break it for good. As I pulled into my parents' driveway the following evening, the Porsche purring beneath me, I felt strangely calm. The house looked the same as always, immaculate colonial, perfectly trimmed hedges, not a flower out of place. Just like the image they'd always worked so hard to maintain. I straightened my shoulders, grabbed the manila folder from the passenger seat, and walked to the front door. Whatever happened next would change everything. "Vanessa's here!" I heard my mother call out as the doorbell chimed. The door swung open to reveal both my parents, smiling as if nothing had ever been wrong between us. Behind them, I could see James and Melissa already seated in the living room. "Darling!" My mother embraced me stiffly. Come in, come in. Tell us all about this amazing car of yours, and the job that paid for it." I stepped inside, clutching my folder, heart pounding against my ribs. They had no idea what was coming. "Yes," my father added with a proud smile that had never been directed at me before. "It seems we've underestimated you all these years." I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. "You have no idea," I said quietly, walking into the living room where my siblings watched with curious expressions. "But you're about to find out exactly how much." The living room looked exactly as it always had, beige sofas arranged in perfect symmetry, family photos displayed in matching silver frames, and not a speck of dust in sight. My mother's pride and joy was this room, meticulously decorated to impress the neighbors and her bridge club friends. I scanned the photographs on the mantel as I took a seat, James in his white coat, Melissa at her art show, my parents on their anniversary cruise. There wasn't a single photo of me. Not even from my wedding. "Can I get you something to drink, dear?" My mother hovered by the drinks cart, already pouring my father's usual scotch. "Nothing, thanks." I needed a clear head for what I was about to do. My siblings exchanged glances. James, ever the diplomatic older brother, looked uncomfortable in his pressed button-down shirt, while Melissa fidgeted with her bracelets, already sensing the tension. So, my father began, settling into his leather armchair, the one no one else was allowed to sit in. "Tell us about this new client of yours. Must be quite substantial to afford a car like that." The way he said it, with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect, made my stomach turn. For years, I told them about my growing business, the clients I was attracting, the expansion to a real office with employees. They'd nodded politely before changing the subject to James's latest medical achievement or Melissa's artistic ventures. But now that there was tangible proof of my success, something shiny they could brag about to their friends, suddenly my career mattered. "The client is a major tech company," I said evenly. "They've signed a 3-year contract worth 7 figures. My mother gasped. My father's eyebrows shot up. 7 figures? James echoed. Wow, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well? My mother perched on the sofa beside me, suddenly interested. I looked her directly in the eyes. I tried. Multiple times. 4 years. An uncomfortable silence descended on the room. My father cleared his throat. Well, we've always known you were smart, Vanessa. But this is impressive. Perhaps we should have paid more attention to this marketing business of yours. Perhaps, I echoed, my voice hollow. My mind flashed back to Christmas 5 years ago, when I'd excitedly told them about landing my first major client. We were all gathered around the dining table when I shared my news. "That's nice, dear," my mother had said, barely looking up from serving the roast. "James, tell everyone about that complicated surgery you performed last week." And just like that, my moment was gone, replaced by 30 minutes of surgical details I couldn't follow. I'd pushed my food around my plate, fighting back tears, while Melissa shot me sympathetic glances across the table. Now, sitting in the living room under their suddenly approving gazes, all those years of dismissal and indifference bubbled to the surface. "Actually," I said, opening the manila folder I'd brought, "I didn't come here to talk about my car or my business success." "No?" My father looked confused. "Then what's this family meeting about?" I pulled out 5 copies of a document I'd prepared and handed one to each family member, keeping the last for myself. "What's this?" My mother squinted at the paper. "It's a record of every significant family event over the past 10 years, I explained calmly. "Each column represents one of us. Each row is an event: graduations, birthdays, celebrations, emergencies, accomplishments. I've marked who attended what." They all glanced down at the document. The pattern was unmistakable. My column had the fewest check marks by far. "I don't understand," my father frowned. "What's the point of this?" "The point," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "is that for my entire adult life, I have been an afterthought in this family. My wedding 3 months ago, which none of you have even mentioned tonight, by the way, was just the culmination of a lifelong pattern." My mother's face flushed. "That's not fair, Vanessa. We had a prior commitment to an alumni dinner I finished for her. For Dad's college roommate." "I know. You chose that over your daughter's wedding." "It wasn't just any dinner," my father protested. "Robert was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. We'd RSVP'd months in advance. My wedding date was set before that invitation ever arrived," I countered, pulling out the evidence, screenshots of text messages with timestamps that proved my point. "You chose not to come. Just like you chose to miss my business launch, my 30th birthday, and countless other moments that mattered to me." James shifted uncomfortably. "Come on, V. They're not perfect, but they love us all equally." I turned to him. "Really? Then why have they never missed one of your events? Look at the chart, James. It's right there in black and white." "This is ridiculous," my father huffed. "We're not going to be put on trial in our own home." "I'm not putting you on trial," I said. "I'm simply stating facts. For 32 years, I have shown up for this family. I've been the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who drops everything when someone needs help. And in return, I've been consistently overlooked and undervalued." Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I wouldn't cry. Not now. Until yesterday," I continued. "Until you saw physical proof of my success in the form of an expensive car. Suddenly, I'm worthy of a family meeting." The room fell silent. My mother looked stricken, her perfectly manicured hands twisting in her lap. My father stared at the document, jaw clenched. Melissa caught my eye and gave me a small nod of support. "I didn't come here for an apology," I said, breaking the silence. I came because I needed you all to understand something. I'm done trying to earn your approval. I'm done being the forgotten child. I'm done showing up for people who can't be bothered to show up for me. I stood up, my whole body trembling with emotion and adrenaline. Vanessa, wait, my mother pleaded. We had no idea you felt this way. That stopped me in my tracks. I turned back slowly. Really? You had no idea? When you didn't come to my wedding and I stopped calling afterward, you thought everything was fine? My father cleared his throat. We've always been proud of you, Vanessa. Perhaps we haven't shown it the way we should have. Perhaps, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. James stood up, Dr. Mode engaged, ready to mediate. Look, we all love each other. This is just a communication breakdown. We can fix this. I shook my head. It's more than communication, James. It's about value. About seeing someone for who they are, not what they can give you or how they make you look. What's that supposed to mean? My father demanded. The floodgates opened. It means you value James because having a doctor's son impresses your friends. You value Melissa because her artistic talents make you seem cultured and progressive. But my work? My accomplishments? They never fit your narrative of success until now, until they came with a price tag you could brag about. My mother gasped. That's not true. Isn't it? I challenged. Name one thing about my business that you could describe to your friends. Just one. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, cheeks flushing with embarrassment. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Melissa finally spoke up. She's right, you know. You two have always played favorites. I benefited from it sometimes, but Vanessa never did. My father's face darkened. That's enough. We will not be ganged up on like this. It's not about ganging up, I countered. It's about acknowledgement. About recognizing a pattern that's hurt me deeply for years. I thought back to my childhood, to all the times I'd tried so hard to earn their attention. The straight A's that were expected rather than celebrated. The school plays where I scanned the audience, hoping to see them in the seats they'd promised to fill, only to find them empty because something more important had come up. I remembered my college graduation, how I'd saved 2 front-row seats for them. They arrived 20 minutes late, missing my honors recognition, because they'd stopped to have breakfast with James, who'd happened to be in town. Do you remember my college graduation? I asked suddenly. My parents exchanged glances. Of course, my mother said uncertainly. What color was my graduation gown? Silence. Red, I supplied. Boston University's color is scarlet. I graduated summa cum laude. The dean called my name first in my department. You weren't there to hear it because you were having breakfast with James. My brother had the grace to look ashamed. I didn't know that's why they were late. It's always been like this, I continued, my voice breaking despite my best efforts. Little moments of being overlooked that added up over the years. But missing my wedding, that wasn't little. That was the clearest message you could possibly send about where I stand in this family. My father stood abruptly. This is absurd. We've given you everything, a good home, education, opportunities. You've given me things, I agreed. But not what I actually needed. Not your time. Not your attention. Not your respect. The tension in the room was palpable. My mother was quietly crying now, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My father looked angry and defensive. James seemed genuinely distressed, while Melissa watched the scene unfold with a mixture of sadness and vindication. "So what now?" my father finally asked. "You've made your point. You've ambushed us with your grievances. What do you want from us?" I took a deep breath. "That's actually why I came today. To tell you what I want, what I've always wanted, and to share some news." I reached into my folder and pulled out another document. This time, I didn't distribute it. I simply held it up. "This is an offer letter. I've been recruited by a firm in Seattle. They want me to head their digital marketing division. It would mean relocating to the West Coast." My mother's head snapped up. "Seattle? But that's across the country." "Yes," I said simply. "It is. You can't just leave," my father protested. "Your business is here. Your husband's job is here." "Daniel works remotely," I replied. "And as for my business, I've built it once. I can build it again." "But what about family?" my mother pleaded. "Holidays, birthdays." I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "You mean the holidays and birthdays you've frequently missed or minimized when they were mine? Those family gatherings?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "I haven't accepted the offer yet," I continued. "But I wanted you to know it's on the table." "And what would make you stay?" James asked quietly. "What do you want from us, V?" I looked at each of them in turn, the family I'd spent my life trying to please, trying to be seen by. "I want acknowledgement. I want change. I want to be valued for who I am, not what I have or how I make you look. And I need to know if that's even possible." I placed the job offer back in my folder and stood once more. "I'm not making any decisions tonight. But I want you all to think about whether you actually want me in your lives. Not the idea of me, not the daughter or sister who shows up when needed and disappears when inconvenient. The real me." I moved toward the door, feeling simultaneously drained and empowered. This confrontation had been 32 years in the making. "Vanessa, wait," my father called. I paused but didn't turn around. "There's something you should know. Something we've never told you." The serious tone in his voice made me slowly face him again. "What?" I asked warily. My parents exchanged a long look, some silent communication passing between them. My mother nodded slightly. "The real reason we missed your wedding," my father began, his voice uncharacteristically unsteady. "It wasn't just about Robert's alumni dinner." My heart began to pound. What could possibly justify missing their daughter's wedding? "Your mother had a cancer scare," he said quietly. "The biopsy was scheduled for that Friday before your wedding. We didn't want to worry you before your big day." I stared at them in disbelief. "What?" My mother stepped forward. "They found a lump during my mammogram. The doctor wanted to biopsy it immediately. We were terrified, but we didn't want to cast a shadow over your wedding." "The alumni dinner was just an excuse," my father continued. "We couldn't face coming to your wedding pretending everything was fine when we were waiting to hear if your mother had cancer. We thought it would be worse to tell you the truth right before you walked down the aisle." I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. "But why didn't you tell me afterward? It's been 3 months." "The biopsy came back benign," my mother explained. We were so relieved, but then so much time had passed, and you were so angry with us. We didn't know how to tell you without it seeming like an excuse. It does sound like an excuse, I said, my voice shaking. A very convenient one. It's the truth, my father insisted, pulling out his phone. I have the medical records, the appointment confirmations. I can show you. As he scrolled through his phone, looking for evidence, Melissa caught my eye and mouthed something I couldn't quite make out. She looked disturbed, even angry. James stood up, his face serious. Mom, Dad, is this really true? Because if you're making this up to manipulate Vanessa. Of course it's true, my father snapped. Why would we lie about something so serious? But something wasn't adding up. The timing, their behavior since the wedding, the sudden interest in my life after seeing the Porsche. Here, my father said triumphantly, holding out his phone. The appointment confirmation. I took the phone with trembling hands and looked at the screen. There it was, an appointment for Elizabeth Morgan at Boston General Breast Imaging Center. Dated October 13th, just 2 days before my wedding. The evidence was irrefutable. But as I stared at the screen, something else caught my eye. Something that made my blood run cold. A small detail that changed everything. I looked up from the phone, meeting my mother's anxious gaze, and felt a chill run through me as the pieces suddenly clicked into place. You're right, I said quietly, handing the phone back to my father. This does change everything. But not in the way they thought. Not at all. I handed my father's phone back to him, my mind racing. The appointment confirmation was real, the date, the hospital, the department. But there was one critical detail they hadn't expected me to notice, the patient number in the corner of the screenshot. Patient #0347B. 3 years ago, when my mother had her gallbladder removed, I'd taken her to several follow-up appointments. I'd filled out her paperwork, scheduled her visits, managed her medications. Her patient number at Boston General had been permanently etched in my memory, #0347B. This wasn't a new medical issue. This was an old appointment record they'd repurposed to create their elaborate lie. I looked at my mother, searching her face for any sign of shame or guilt. Instead, I saw only nervous anticipation, as if she were waiting for my forgiveness to be automatically granted now that they played their trump card. The thing about digital records, I said slowly, is that they contain a lot of information. Information most people wouldn't notice. My father frowned. What are you talking about? Mom's patient number, I said, watching their expressions carefully. It's the same one from her gallbladder surgery 3 years ago. The color drained from my mother's face. My father's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. If this were a new issue, a breast cancer scare as you claim, she would have been assigned to a different department with a different patient classification. I turned to James, the doctor in the family. Isn't that right? James looked stunned. Generally, yes. Patient numbers are typically departmental, especially for specialized units like oncology or breast imaging. This is absurd, my father sputtered. You're focusing on administrative details to avoid the real issue. I laughed bitterly. The real issue is that you're lying. You're making up a cancer scare to justify missing my wedding. How dare you, my father thundered, his face turning red. Your mother was terrified. No, she wasn't, I said quietly. Because it never happened. The room fell silent. Melissa stood up and moved to my side, a gesture of solidarity I hadn't expected but desperately appreciated. "I can't believe you would do this," she said to our parents. "Make up a cancer scare? That's low, even for you two." My mother burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. My father put his arm around her, glaring at us. "We've done everything for you girls, and this is how you repay us? With accusations and ingratitude?" "Everything except show up when it mattered," I replied. "And now you've been caught in a disgusting lie." James looked deeply uncomfortable, torn between his loyalties. "Maybe there's an explanation for the patient number." "There isn't," I said firmly. "And deep down, you know it." I turned back to my parents, a strange calm washing over me. In a twisted way, this lie had given me something valuable: certainty. Certainty that I wasn't imagining the dysfunction in our family. Certainty that I wasn't overreacting. Certainty about what I needed to do next. "I came here tonight hoping for reconciliation," I said. "I thought maybe, just maybe, you actually wanted to repair our relationship. Instead, you've fabricated a story about cancer, of all things, to avoid taking responsibility for your choices." My mother looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Vanessa, please." "No," I cut her off. "There's nothing left to say. You've made your priorities crystal clear, not just today but for my entire life. And now I'm making mine clear." I picked up my folder and headed for the door again. This time, no one tried to stop me. "The Seattle job," I said, pausing at the threshold. "I'm taking it. Daniel and I will be moving next month." My mother's sob echoed through the room. My father stood frozen, his arms still around her shoulders. "You're making a mistake," he said stiffly. "Walking away from family is something you'll regret." I turned back one last time. "I'm not walking away from family. I'm walking away from people who have shown me repeatedly that I don't matter to them. There's a difference." With that, I walked out, the door closing behind me with a quiet click that somehow felt more final than if I'd slammed it. The cool evening air hit my face as I stepped onto the porch, and I took a deep breath, feeling like I could finally exhale after holding my breath for 32 years. I was halfway to my car when I heard the front door open again. Footsteps hurried down the walkway behind me. "Vanessa, wait!" I turned to see Melissa jogging toward me, her expression determined. "I'm coming with you," she said when she reached me. "What?" "Not to Seattle," she clarified. "But away from them. I've been saving up. I can get my own place now, away from their control." I stared at my younger sister, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. Behind the artistic free-spirit facade was someone who had been damaged by our parents in different but equally significant ways. "They've been lying to me too," she continued, her voice low. "About my art school applications, about the help they give me. It's all designed to keep me dependent on them." I unlocked my car, processing this new information. "What do you mean?" Melissa glanced back at the house, making sure we weren't being overheard. "Remember when I didn't get into RISD? They told me my portfolio wasn't good enough. But I found out last year that I was actually accepted. They hid the acceptance letter because they didn't want me moving to Rhode Island." "Jesus," I whispered. That's manipulation on another level." "It gets worse," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "The financial help they give me? It comes with conditions I never told you about. They control where I live, who I date, even what kind of art I create. Anything too controversial means the money stops. I leaned against my car, trying to absorb yet another layer of family dysfunction. Why didn't you ever say anything? She looked down. I was embarrassed. You were so independent, so successful on your own. Meanwhile, I was still taking their money, still playing by their rules. I felt pathetic in comparison. I reached out and squeezed her arm. You're not pathetic. You're their victim, just like I was in a different way. At least something good came from this disaster tonight, she said with a wry smile. I'm done. Really done. I'd rather wait tables and paint in a tiny studio apartment than live under their thumb for one more day. Headlights swept across us as a car pulled into the driveway. James. He must have slipped out the back door to retrieve something from his car. He approached us slowly, his expression unreadable. Are you two okay? He asked, stopping a few feet away. We're fine, I replied stiffly. Just making plans for a parent-free future. He winced. I don't blame you. That was. He trailed off, searching for words. I've never seen them like that before. You've never seen them caught in a lie before, Melissa corrected. There's a difference. James ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. I knew they played favorites. I knew they put more pressure on me, gave Melissa more leeway, and overlooked you, Vanessa. But this? Fabricating a medical emergency? I never thought they'd go that far. His admission, that he had always known about the favoritism, should have made me angry. Instead, I just felt sad. Sad for all of us, caught in the toxic web our parents had woven. The thing is, I said quietly, they didn't have to lie. If they just owned their behavior, apologized sincerely, and committed to change, we could have moved forward. But they couldn't even give me that basic respect. What happens now? James asked. I meant what I said in there. Daniel and I are moving to Seattle. I've already discussed it with him, we were waiting to see how tonight went before making a final decision. And I'm getting my own place, Melissa added. No more strings. James nodded slowly. And me? Where do I fit in this new family configuration? It was a fair question. James had benefited from our parents' favoritism his entire life, but he hadn't created the dynamic. Still, he'd been complicit in it. That depends on you, I said honestly. If you want relationships with us that aren't filtered through mom and dad, you'll need to build them independently. No reporting back to them. No trying to mediate or fix things. And no judging our choices, Melissa added. He considered this for a moment. I can do that. I want to do that. For the first time that evening, I felt a glimmer of hope. Not for reconciliation with my parents, that bridge had been thoroughly burned, but for a new kind of relationship with my siblings. One based on mutual respect and shared understanding rather than the roles we'd been assigned in our family's dysfunction. I should get going, I said. Daniel's waiting to hear how everything went. It went terribly, Melissa said with a small laugh. But also maybe exactly as it needed to. I hugged her tightly, then, after a moment's hesitation, opened my arms to James. He stepped forward, embracing me awkwardly but sincerely. I'm sorry, he whispered. For not seeing it sooner. For not standing up for you more. Just do better going forward, I replied, stepping back. That's all. Just do better going forward, I replied, stepping back. That's all any of us can do. As I drove away from my parents' house that night, the headlights cutting through the darkness, I felt strangely light. The confrontation had been painful, the lies shocking, but there was an undeniable sense of liberation washing over me. For decades, I'd been trying to earn love that should have been freely given. No more. Daniel was waiting up when I got home, sitting on our couch with 2 glasses of wine and concern etched across his face. One look at me and he stood, arms open. That bad? He asked as I melted into his embrace. Worse, I said. They lied about having a medical emergency to justify missing our wedding. His body stiffened. They what? I pulled back, taking the wine glass he offered, and sank onto the couch. They claimed Mom had a cancer scare scheduled the same weekend as our wedding. But I caught them in the lie. As I recounted the evening's events, the confrontation, the fake medical records, my siblings' reactions, Daniel listened intently, his expression shifting between disbelief and anger. So you're definitely taking the Seattle job? He asked when I finished. I nodded. If the offer still stands. Are you sure you're okay with relocating? He smiled, that gentle smile that had first made me fall in love with him. My work is remote, but my wife isn't. I go where you go. What if this is a mistake? I whispered, vulnerability creeping in. What if I'm overreacting? Vanessa, Daniel said firmly, taking my hands in his. They missed our wedding for a fake reason. Then they lied about having cancer. If anything, you're underreacting. He was right. This wasn't a hasty decision made in anger, it was a necessary step toward healing, toward building a life where I was valued and respected. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. I accepted the Seattle position, Daniel gave notice to his landlord that we'd be vacating our apartment, and we began the process of packing our lives into boxes. Melissa called daily, updating me on her own escape plan. She'd found a small apartment in Cambridge and a job at a local gallery that would cover her basic expenses while she built her art portfolio. James checked in regularly too, awkward but trying, navigating his new role as a brother independent of our parents' influence. My parents, predictably, vacillated between guilt-tripping texts, "How could you do this to your mother?" and attempts at bribery disguised as reconciliation, "We'd like to help you with a down payment on a house in Boston." I responded to none of them. 3 days before our scheduled move, as Daniel and I were sorting through the last of our belongings, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother standing there alone, looking smaller and older than I remembered. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Every instinct told me to say no, to protect the fragile peace I'd found. But something in her expression, a vulnerability I'd never seen before, made me step aside. She entered hesitantly, taking in the half-packed boxes and emptied shelves. "So you're really leaving," she said, more statement than question. "Yes," I confirmed. "Our flight is on Saturday." She nodded, perching on the edge of our couch. "I came alone. Your father doesn't know I'm here." That surprised me. In 32 years, I couldn't remember my mother ever directly defying my father's wishes. "Why are you here?" I asked, remaining standing, maintaining distance both physical and emotional. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. "To tell you the truth. The real truth this time." I crossed my arms, skeptical but listening. "We didn't have a good reason for missing your wedding," she began. "Not a cancer scare, not an alumni dinner. The truth is..." She took a deep breath, We didn't come because your father was angry that you wouldn't let him walk you down the aisle." I stared at her in disbelief. "What?" "When you told us you planned to walk alone, to make a statement about independence, he took it as a personal insult. He said if you didn't need him to give you away, then you didn't need us at your wedding at all." I sank into a chair opposite her, stunned. "So because I chose to walk myself down the aisle, at my own wedding, you both decided to skip it entirely?" "It sounds terrible when you put it like that," she admitted. "But you've always challenged your father's authority, always been so self-sufficient." It threatened him. "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard," I said, anger bubbling up again. "I was self-sufficient because I had to be. Because neither of you were there for me." "I know," she said quietly, tears forming in her eyes. "I know that now." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of decades of misunderstanding and hurt filling the space between us. "Your father won't ever change," she continued eventually. "He can't admit when he's wrong. His pride won't allow it. But I need to try to make amends, even if it's too late." "Why now?" I asked. "Because I'm leaving? Because I finally stood up for myself?" She looked down at her hands. "Because when you left that night, when you said you were moving across the country, I realized I was losing my daughter forever. And it was my fault." "It's not just about the wedding," I said, my voice softening despite myself. "It's a lifetime of being overlooked, undervalued, dismissed." "I know," she repeated. "I failed you as a mother. I prioritized your father's ego over your feelings, again and again. I can't undo that damage, but I can at least be honest with you now." There was no manipulation in her voice, no attempt to change my mind about moving. Just a simple, painful acknowledgement of the truth. "Thank you," I said finally. "For being honest. It's more than I expected." She nodded, wiping away a tear. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I am proud of you, Vanessa. Not because of the car or the job, but because of the woman you've become, strong, principled, brave. All the things I never was." The words I'd waited a lifetime to hear, coming too late to change my course but not too late to heal a small part of my heart. "I should go," she said, standing. "Your father will wonder where I am." I walked her to the door, a strange mix of emotions churning inside me. As she stepped onto the porch, she turned back. Will you let me know when you arrive safely in Seattle?" she asked hesitantly. It was a small request, a tiny thread of connection she was hoping to maintain. "Yes," I said. "I can do that." She nodded gratefully and turned to leave. "Mom," I called after her. She paused. "I can't promise reconciliation, especially not with Dad. But I'm open to communication. On new terms. Just between us." A small smile formed on her lips. "I'd like that very much." As I watched her walk to her car, I realized this wasn't the dramatic resolution I might have once hoped for. There was no tearful group hug, no miraculous family healing. My father remained unchanged. The past remained unaltered. The hurt was still real. But there was something else now too, a beginning. A fragile path forward with my mother. A stronger relationship with my siblings. And most importantly, a deeper understanding of my own worth, independent of my family's recognition. 3 days later, as our plane lifted off from Boston Logan International Airport, Daniel squeezed my hand. "Ready for your new life?" he asked. I looked out the window at the city shrinking beneath us, the only home I'd ever known, with all its complicated memories and relationships. "I already started it," I replied, the moment I stopped waiting for their approval and chose myself instead. The Seattle job wasn't just a career move, it was a declaration. My $135,000 Porsche wasn't just a car, it was tangible proof of what I'd built without their support. And that family meeting wasn't just a confrontation, it was my final attempt to be seen by people who had always looked past me. Some might call it running away. I called it moving forward. Some might see it as breaking family ties. I saw it as forming healthier ones, with my siblings, potentially with my mother, and most importantly, with myself. As we soared above the clouds, I sent a group text to James and Melissa, "Wheels up. New chapter beginning. Love you both." Then, after a moment's hesitation, I sent one more message, to my mother alone, departed safely. "We'll be in touch when we land. Thank you for the truth." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was acknowledgement. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. I tucked my phone away and leaned my head on Daniel's shoulder, watching the landscape transform beneath us. Just as I was transforming too, from the forgotten middle child desperately seeking approval to a woman who finally understood her own value. The Porsche that had inadvertently triggered this family reckoning was safely in transport to our new home. But the real vehicle of change had been within me all along, the courage to stand up for myself, to demand better, and to walk away when better wasn't possible. Some bridges burn behind you, illuminating the path forward with their flames. And sometimes, that light is exactly what you need to find your way home, not to the place you came from, but to the person you were always meant to be. Have you ever had to walk away from family to find yourself? Share your story in the comments.